This is kind of freaky, not gonna lie. It's my first time doing this, but I'm really excited. I'm excited to see so many people here, and I'm supposed to sit down, but I'm not going to. So I'm gonna be all over the place. Just work with me. So thank you everybody for coming out to our event. This is the first time we've done this, Women in IT event. We've got a great panelist here, answer some questions, talk a little bit about women in IT. So thank you. We're going to get started just by doing a bit of an introduction of our panelists. So first, Michelle. Michelle is here from the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, and I think she has some fans in the audience too. Yeah?
All the fans.
You know what? When I saw the list of people coming, and that so many people were coming to support Michelle, I thought, you're a great leader. They wouldn't do that if you weren't.
There was also promise of free wine, so
that's why I'm here too.
It's all relative.
That's why I'm here too. But Michelle is the Senior Vice President of Product and Delivery. Pretty fabulous. But not just that, you're actually been the Woman of the Year. Is that true? Like Woman of the Year?
Not in my house, but...
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm going to the end. Tanya, nice to have you here. She's the Associate Director of Strategic Implementation at McMaster University. I know we have some students here today. Great role model for all of us. She works in the office of the AVP and the CTO.
Yeah, so at McMaster we have really long titles, and so each leader of every administrative area is an assistant vice president and a chief of something. And so I work with the chief technology officer.
Excellent. Nice to have you here. Thank you. Sabiha Choudhry is here with us. She's the Director of Data Analytics at Iris Software. I've had the pleasure of being able to work with Sabiha on and off for the last 10 years, and I'm so excited that she agreed to come here and chat with us.
Thank you, Christine.
Yeah. She is like literally one of the smartest women I know. And not just smart when you chat with her, but if you don't know the answer, she goes out and figures it out for you. She's quite incredible. And last but not least, Doina. Thank you for joining us. Doina is actually the CEO of a nonprofit.
Charitable organization.
Dang, I knew I was getting it wrong. VOLUTION. You want to tell just a quick snippet of VOLUTION and what it is?
Sure. So VOLUTION is an award-winning charitable organization that focuses on bridging the gap for women in STEM in Ontario.
It's perfect. And you are actually also a winner of one of the most powerful women. Is that right?
Yes, last year, WXN Canada's
That's
top
awesome.
100 women.
Fabulous, fabulous. Well, that leaves me, so not Woman of the Year. Christine Key.
Not yet.
Thank you, thank you. Oh my God, thank you. I'm the VP of Services at Eclipsys Solutions. So Eclipsys is actually the sponsor of this event. I feel really grateful for being able to work for a great organization that supports women. I've been in the tech industry for over 20 years, and it hasn't been easy. And I don't think I would have got this opportunity that I have now to lead a group of amazing technical people without Eclipsys. So just a little bit about us. We are the Oracle experts. I have a couple in the room with us here today. A great organization, small. We're like 55 people. Yet we won Great Place to Work and one of the top 100 small, medium-sized businesses in Canada award this year. We deliver solutions to our customers, migrating them to the cloud, bringing Oracle solutions to them. We're here to sponsor this event. And that's all I'm going to talk about today for Eclipsys. Okay, so why are we here? Like, why'd you guys come? It's not just the wine. Last night I was actually at my pottery class, and I was getting a little stressed out. I got to do this thing. And my teacher said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to moderate this event about women in tech." And she looked at me and said, "Well, what's the problem? And I thought, well, there you go. So we're here to talk about that there is actually a problem. Talk about it to bring awareness to not just the people in this room, but to everybody. This is an issue that we need to address at a leadership level and at like just down at kindergartens, right? Start right from the beginning all the way up to the top. So we're here to inspire, bring awareness to the situation, and then hopefully make some change. Okay? So, what's next? Oh, we're gonna have some videos. Oh, thank God. I don't have to talk all the time. So we're actually using some video clips from a TV show called Good Trouble. Has anyone seen this? One person. Well, hopefully after you see a few of these clips, maybe you might take a look at it. It's made by Freeform, available online. We thank the producers for letting us use their clips. But we're going to use this as a way to sort of spark some conversation. So that's the format. We're going to have some questions that go with it. Okay? Getting to the table. So first question, and maybe I will sit down now. For all of you, what first sparked your interest in working in the tech industry? And what advice would you give your younger self now? I'll start with you, Michelle.
I was pulled into the tech industry. So in 2014, I was working at RBC, and the executive team there said, we've heard about this agile thing. Does anybody want to try it? And so we've got $10 million, and my EVP put up his hand and said, yeah, sure, we'll try it in wealth management, and turned to me and said, figure this out. And I was like, I got this. I have no idea what you're talking about. And so founded the first Agile lab at RBC, helped found the Agile Center of Excellence, and
Fabulous.
went from there. So that was, yeah.
What advice would you give yourself?
I think that I did 12 years of management consulting before I sort of did 10 years of banking and moved into tech. And I had some really big preconceived notions about what I did not want to do. And so I moved to Boston to be at one of the big global management consulting firms, and I was not going to work in retail, and I was not going to work in aviation because they were quant-heavy practices, and that was not what I thought I wanted to do. And my second project was on an airline in bankruptcy. And in that 8 months that I worked there, I got so much knowledge and so many advocates that then I went on to help Delta get out of bankruptcy, and United Airlines, and then Alaska Airlines. And when I ran my own firm later, I worked at an aerospace company, and the camaraderie and the support and the sponsorship that I got in an area that I never wanted to work.
Didn't want to be there.
I didn't want to be there. And I didn't think that I fit. And so, but my advice is don't rule things out before you try, and especially earlier in your career, take those chances.
It's great advice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Doina?
So my start to this career is kind of unconventional because my actual education is, I'm a social worker by trade. I study advocacy for women and children. So, but my personal experience, I came to Canada at 19. I finished high school in Romania. When I came here, I didn't speak the language. I didn't have a network of people. And it took me 13 years before I realized that I could go to post-secondary because there's OSAP. So that lack of information held me back for 13 years. And I've also experienced a whole bunch of barriers on my own. And nobody, really young woman, just finished high school, starting their career in a new country. And I didn't have anybody giving me the opportunity or even educate me, not just on going to school, but this is an option for me. I've been interested in engineering. I took things apart as a child and put them back together. So I thought I could have been a great engineer. So that's a missed opportunity. And then I learned about lack of women in STEM. And one thing that I did, I'm sure everyone experienced this. When you see something and you think it's a great idea, you say, why can't somebody do this? Right? So me, I was like, why can't somebody create an organization that supports disadvantaged students or people that experience barriers? I work in the nonprofit sector. I work with women, refugee women. I work with youth in conflict with the law. I work with youth in general. I work with youth in employment. And these opportunities were never presented. So coming from as a social worker, I didn't know that I could refer someone, this is an opportunity for you that you could take. And so for a year and a half, I held this back, and that goes to what I would tell my younger self. Just do it.
Just do
when
it.
something comes to you and you think it's a great idea, jump to the opportunity, because it doesn't matter if you fail. I don't actually believe in failure. I think you learn something. And as I was talking earlier with Tanya, I was saying, or I think Tanya or someone else here, I said, there's a million ways to do one thing. So if you try it a million ways and you can figure out the million ways that you cannot do it, but you find one way, right? So don't hold yourself back, and don't let anybody hold you back either. That's my advice to myself and
Great
everybody
advice.
else.
Great advice. Yeah. Sabiha?
I don't know. I don't want to say I got pulled, but yes, it was my interest. IT career. My background is industrial engineering, and I was fresh out of university, and we were just getting started on a job as a trainee engineer. And my husband got a job in Nigeria. That's how he went to Nigeria. But when I said, "What about my career?" So, like they said, there's a
Good.
school. There's a school, and you can be a teacher. And that was like, I was shocked. That was the last thing I wanted to do in my life. So
Did not want to be a
That's
teacher.
what got me into the IT career. So I did some courses, got into the into an organization where they were just getting started into data migrations and all those things. That's where it kick-started. So
What advice would you give yourself?
to my younger self, I would just say, you bring a unique perspective, ideas. Don't be bold. Be ready to speak up your ideas. I wish I had done it when I was younger.
You did do it. You did do it. And then the rest of that story is, Sabiha then facilitated a move to Canada because she wanted a better life for her kids and better opportunity. And I think that's all on you. And amazing journey. And I love seeing her kids are super successful. Son working for AWS.
Oh, yes.
Hate to say it, we'll talk about pay equity later, probably making more than all of us. Fine. And daughter just started her career at university. So.
In university, yes. She's also in IT, by the way.
And I know she would be in IT. It's perfect. It's perfect. Tanya, what about you?
So I started in tech in a roundabout way as well. My background is in global strategic communications, predominantly in the healthcare sector. And when I first left the post-secondary education bubble, it was in 2008 in London, UK, when the last recession was starting. And really it was just healthcare and tech that were hiring. And I do tend to follow opportunities with reputable companies in stable but innovative spaces. And so healthcare and tech, I think, tech maybe not so much, depending on where you're coming from. But I ended up taking the healthcare opportunity and starting to build my career there. And I got to work all over the world in really cool accounts with clients, but found my way back to Canada. The company I worked for had a Canadian footprint. And I came back here and actually shifted to the Hospital for Sick Children. Again, still working in healthcare, but with some intersection with tech, because we had people all over the world. We had to figure out how to highlight different research and innovations using different tools. And then after babies, I wanted to be near grandparents. And I'm from Hamilton, and McMaster University is in Hamilton. And the opportunity they had available was a manager of communications and culture with the IT division. And there was a new leader, a new chief technology officer who had really big plans. And I could just see myself working with her and this team and undergoing all this change. So I started there 5 years ago, and I was able to help launch our current IT strategic plan. And it's been an amazing journey. And just a few months ago, I've taken on the Associate Director of Strategic Implementation role. And that brings me into my advice to myself. And that's, I think, along the way, and I think women tend to do this. I think there's some stats out there, I don't know exactly what they are, but that, you know, men will look at a job description or a job posting and say, yeah, for sure, I can do this. And women will look at it and say, yeah, but I don't have this, and I don't have that, and I don't have that. And I've done that along the way. You know, when I was going for the communications role in IT, I led with, I don't have an IT background, but I have transferable skills that you need for this role. Similarly, when my CTO came to me for the strategic implementation role and said, have you considered this role? And I said, well, I'm communications, what are you talking about? You know, because it effectively leads an entire PMO. I said, I'm not sure I have the right skill set that you're looking for. And she said, what are you talking about? You helped craft this strategic plan. You know all of the projects that we have on the go and in the pipeline. You have the relationships. You have what we're looking for. And so I really have to keep talking to my current self about starting with those transferable skills and the experience that relates, as opposed to the gaps in your experience.
That's really good advice. It's good advice for all of us. And that strategic plan is actually quite fantastic. I've read that. So well done. Well done. I think I would tell my younger self that I just can do it. Just be who you are and know you can do it, whatever it is that you want to do. Okay, we are going to our first video.
The industries that shape our society don't reflect the people who live in it.
We're talking specifically about the legal field, which handles the laws that define our lives, and the STEM field, which produces the technology we use every day.
In Good Trouble, Callie and my character Mariana find themselves working in both of these fields. But in real life, women and people of color in these professions are extremely rare.
How rare? Well, first, let's talk tech. Technology is theoretically made for everyone, but it's not made by everyone.
For example, women make up more than half the population, but less than a quarter of STEM employees. And for the women who do make it into STEM careers, half of them report facing gender-based discrimination, an even higher percentage than those in non-STEM fields.
I'm not looking at the screen. I'm trying not to look at the screen. That's why I got the cue cards. So I'm not always... I did look up, though, because those are US-based stats. Actually, all these videos are based on US-based stats. But in Canada, it's 23% of STEM jobs are held by women. Like, that's shitty. That's, Paul, if you're counting, it really is. And I think there's a stat, too, that suggests that there's like 32% of the STEM degrees out there are women, but only 23% of the roles, right? There's definitely this gap that's happening. The one stat that I thought was really poignant for me is that in the UK, it's 43%. And so they're doing something better. And I always think that we're a few years behind, just like I lived in Thunder Bay and we were always a few years behind in fashion and style. We're just a few years behind here, and hopefully we'll catch up. And I'm hoping that things like this that we're doing today will help get us there, okay? Oh, we have an audience poll. You guys answered some questions as you came in. So we asked, do you think enough is being done to help women get into the tech industry? 92.6% of you said no, not enough is being done. Anyone want to comment why? I'm not looking at you. Okay, that's cool. You know what? Instead, I'm going to ask Michelle a question. Okay, so why do you think it's more important for women to join the tech industry? And what more do you think could be done in the immediate term to make that happen?
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
It
I mean,
is.
DE&I is something that's really at the core of who I am and part of the reason that I'm here today. I'm the executive sponsor of our Women at Teachers Employee Resource Group, and I think that true diversity, not just women in technology, but diversity of all backgrounds and races and experiences and where you've lived and everything that you can bring to the table makes us better. And so I think that it is really important to foster an environment that's like this. There's so many ways that I think we could do things better. I'm going to go to a personal story that happened to me in grade 10. And so I won a Petro-Canada Science Scholarship Award. I always wanted to be a doctor growing up. I knew that I was going to go into an undergrad in science. I won this award, and I had one of my science teachers say to me that she didn't think that that I shouldn't have won this award. It should have gone to somebody else. And the quote was, "You have no potential." So, and little me was like, and I was like, Yeah, right. I have no potential.
Yeah, I'll show you.
But then my brother went to an all-boys school, and my parents said, "Do you want to go to an all-girls school?" And I had no idea of the advantages that you could get if you're focused on in smaller classes and all this stuff. And I said, "No, I'm going to compete with boys my entire career. I need to be with them at school." I was just boy crazy, but
I know, it's
but
fine.
really, like,
But
it
I
was-
like the first thing you said better. But
No, but and I knew that I needed to compete, and so I went and did my science degree. I have a Master of Science, and an MBA. So my whole career has been in male-dominated fields and consulting and banking and technology and everything else. So I think the stereotypes and the language around what you see people doing and what box you paint them in, and to say to little blonde me when I was 15 years old that I have no potential is absolutely insane.
It is.
I think media can do a lot to make us feel like we can see people, right? The head cheerleader can also be coding an app, and the prom queen can be, the head of the math team and other things like that. But I think as a leader, it is also my job to see potential in people and to pull them in and to mentor and to sponsor and to train, but also to see the skill set that we were talking about and how it's transferable. And we've had a bunch of our business analysts that have gone into product owner roles in my world. There's a bunch of people that you need to pull them up and say, you can do this, and here's the opportunity, and then give the psychological safety that when things don't go right, and you fail, because we all fail, then we pick them back up and we stand them back up and we say, great, now move on. And so I think it's really circular, and it's got to be completely inclusive. But it's my job to find and nurture these amazing women that we have here too.
Well, great answer. And I think it's all of our jobs. All of us need to be doing it. Seeing the potential, understanding that you don't have to have all the skills, that you have all these great transferable skills, giving opportunities to women. I think it's great. It's great. Thank you. Nice answer. I'm going to score after.
I've been practicing.
So the second area we're going to look at is breaking down some barriers. So this question's for Sabiha. So why don't you tell us about your first job in IT, and what was it like to start work in a male-dominated field?
My first job in IT, as I said, I was back in Nigeria. I did some courses and walked, actually. I was told to walk into a company by an acquaintance of mine. She was a lady, and I always thank her. So I walked into this huge group of companies, and they asked me to show a demo of what I could do. So I had to prove myself before they selected me. And after I was selected, it was proving myself every day. Like, wake up in the morning and you have to prove yourself every day, right? At the same time, you would be second guessing your work, like, why do you have to do that every day, right? So it was hard. It was hard to get yourself implanted into the male-dominated world, but perseverance, hard work. I know we have to work a lot harder than our male counterparts. I've seen that. We have to work our day jobs also at the same time, go home and work. So that's when our second shift starts.
Or tomorrow you have to look after your children while they're at home while you continue
While
to
you're
work.
working, that's right.
So yes, it was a lot of hard work, and what I I'm into core IT, and even today, if you ask me, I'm completely hands-on. Christine knows that. So I kept myself completely hands-on in all kinds of technologies, kept myself brushing up. I do a lot of reading even now, learn on the job even now. That's how I keep on going.
Yeah. I've watched you, so I've had the pleasure of working with Sabiha for on and off for 10 years, and I won't say she works harder than all the guys that I work with, but she works really hard, and I do think that's a indication, right, or something that happens to us in this field, is you feel like you need to work harder.
Right. And then you have to take care of your, I won't say male counterparts, but other people taking credit for your work. So you have to take care of that also.
Yeah, it's not easy to juggle. Not easy to juggle. Tanya. So do you think that you had to work harder than your male? Oh my gosh, it's like I set ourselves up for this question. Do you think that you've had to work harder than your male counterparts in order to prove yourself, in order to succeed?
There have definitely been times in my career where that's been accurate, I would say. Communications tends to be female dominated, and I think it's only more recently that I'm recognizing the privilege I've had in education and experience, and trying to be more mindful of that as I see others coming through the ranks, and also remembering times where I have been the only female in a room, and this is not in my current organization, but with senior male executives and professionals, and we're there to talk about a communications initiative, and it's like I'm not even there. And in my head, I'm like, what's going on here? Like, hi, I'm here, and not showing that. But after that, I think first eye-opening experience, yeah, you better be sure that the next time I walked into the room with that group, I made sure that everything was locked down and they couldn't ignore me. And not in an aggressive way, but just to say, I've got this. This is what you've brought me into the fold for, and I deserve that respect without aggressively demanding it. And so I think that is one example. Another, and I don't know if this is more self-imposed and comes with the territory of being a woman and a working mother, but after coming back from parental leave, I felt the pressure. I felt the internal pressure to be there, to not be leaving, to not be constantly making what I felt like were excuses. My baby's sick, I have to go, I have to do pickup. And I do think that has been a silver lining of the pandemic, at least through McMaster. We really emphasized being empathetic to people's personal lives and family lives, whether it be children or elder care. And so I've started to go easier on myself.
Good.
But that was there initially. I don't know if my male counterparts who have young children feel the same way. We don't really talk about it. Maybe we should.
Maybe we should. Maybe we should. Yeah, I know when I went back to work after my second baby was born, I went back to work 4 days a week. And right after that, I was overlooked for a leadership position. And maybe it was because the gentleman who got the job was more qualified than me. I don't think so. I have 3 degrees. I was going to swear again. But I think it's because I was back at work, new mother, and there's that assumption that I can't work necessarily as hard, I can't give as much. And so that's definitely a place.
Can I add something to
Yeah,
this?
I'd love it.
So I am not in the tech field or STEM field with professionals like you, but I am with a lot of our partners and also with young women. And we've actually been in existence for 10 years. February 14, 10 years anniversary.
Woohoo!
So it's exciting. Thank you. But one thing that, every time we have programs for young women, and we get a lot of people, men that come and they say, we'd like to volunteer. Is it okay? I find that to be the best way to get the next generation to learn. First and foremost, we have to build confidence. Like confidence in a room when you show up at a boardroom or a project room or meeting, whatever the case may be, you show up with confidence to say, yes, I'm confident I can do this. And also having the interaction with the young women and the men volunteers. I find that to be super helpful. Well, we have this conversation a lot. And when I started VOLUTION in the beginning, actually the statistics, I'm blown away because the statistics back then were 27% to 34% women in STEM. And now we're actually lowering the numbers, which is really weird because I feel like we've done more, but somehow something is happening that we're not doing right. But one thing is when we have partnership with companies and they say, we have girls in the room, how is it, if we actually bring a man to be the volunteer to teach them something or to speak or, I encourage that because the truth is young women, when they're in high school, they already hear a lot of messaging that STEM is hard. It's very challenging, it's very difficult, and I'm just gonna go in and I'm gonna get out, and it's probably not gonna be for me, and how am I gonna deal with family life and my career, and what's even the point to enter this? But when they see men that show up at our programs, for example, and they volunteer, and they're welcoming, the truth is, when they get to the workforce, they don't get to choose who they work for, who they work with, unless they actually create their own company and they hire women only, right? The truth is they have to work with men. But getting them at a younger age to realize there are allies out there that actually are on our side and they want to support us, you know, so, and to help them build that confidence when they go into the room and they interview for a job, or they feel, yeah, it's not such a big deal that I get to work with the men, because I know maybe some of them might not be supportive, but there are also men out there that are supportive. So we need to change a little bit that language to say, yeah, it's hard, but you can do it. And yes, you have support.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're cueing another video.
What if I told you that sexism is officially over? Well, it's true that women are now 16% more likely to get hired than men.
And women have outnumbered men on college campuses for almost a decade.
Mission accomplished on smashing the patriarchy, right?
Not by a long shot.
Women still face major barriers at work, and in more surprising, insidious ways than you might think. Like the hurdle my character Mariana and her crew experience in this week's Good Trouble finale.
I lied about Vincent passing on your pitch. I thought it would be easier than
Telling me the truth? What happened? I thought you loved it. Why is this high-powered female executive holding Mariana and her team back from their success, instead of advocating for them?
Unfortunately, this scenario is all too common. Women-led companies are 63% less likely to get financial backing than companies run by men. Weird, since female entrepreneurs who do manage to secure investment are just as successful as men.
Although we've made some progress getting women into leadership roles, the percentage of women taking a first step into management has barely budged from just 38% in years. The numbers get worse the farther up the ranks you go. Today, only 21% of senior level positions are held by women.
And if women do get to the top, they often face more scrutiny than male leaders.
All we ever did was stand up for doing the right thing.
But the perception is that you and your team are troublemakers. And for me, as a woman, I have to be very careful where I invest the company's money. My choices are scrutinized more closely. I don't have the luxury of making a mistake.
This problem isn't unique to the business world.
Women are also more scrutinized in an industry that's getting a lot of attention right now: law enforcement.
A research group at Yale wanted to know if female police chiefs were held to higher standards than their male counterparts.
So they created a study with a fictional story about a police chief who fails to properly staff their force for an upcoming protest, a mistake that led to multiple injuries. In one version of the tale, our top cop is male.
In another, she's female. Same scenario, same mistake. But the approval rating of the female police chief dropped by 30%.
For the male police chief, it dropped only 10%. Study participants believed she should be demoted, while he should keep his job. No wonder women leaders are paranoid.
It's the plight of being the only woman police chief, the only woman in a boardroom. All eyes are on you, watching for a reason to say, we knew she didn't belong. If we want to continue decades of progress towards gender equality, we need to create work environments where women, from scrappy entrepreneurs like Mariana to powerful investors, feel empowered to do their jobs.
Women deserve to lead for the same reasons men do, because they worked hard and they're good at what they do.
Really good at what they do. We had an audience poll question, which I thought the results were interesting. I don't know how to unpack it, but we asked, do you think the industry is changing enough to give women more access to the same jobs and benefits as their male counterparts? And the answer was 50% yes and 50% no, which is kind of interesting. You know, you think it wouldn't have been sort of that balance, equal numbers. One of the comments is that there really is a positive trend in raising awareness. However, there's still lots of resources that are not available to who want to enter and grow in the tech world. So just interesting. It maybe is a bit of a trend that we're headed at least in the right direction. And maybe my stats were just from a different source than yours. Mine were from Randstad. Excellent. Doina, how much do you think the tech industry has changed since you started your organization? Has it changed? Have you seen the change in the last 10 years?
I see a lot of awareness change. Like, people know more about the lack of women in STEM. But in terms of what's actually being done, there's I know it sounds cliche, but there's a lot more to be done. There still is a lot more to be done, which is true. And it takes, the reality is, the reason why it seems like there's a lot more to be done is because impact takes time. And I speak from the the demographic of young women that we work with at VOLUTION, we work with them, they are in high school, grade 9. So it takes 4 years for them to just finish high school. And they come into one of our programs, and we all depend on funding, because you guys know how charitable organizations work, and you have to have enough, lack of resources, try to make it happen, but we make it happen somehow. And they get into post-secondary, and then we try to support them and influence them enough so that they can actually get into post-secondary. And then they get into post-secondary. That's another reality that they have to face. And then they get into the workforce, and that's another reality that they have to face. And a lot has changed in terms of awareness. I feel like people talk about it, but what I'm really still trying to figure out is how is it that when I was doing research about women in STEM before I started VOLUTION 10 years ago, with 27 to 34% women in STEM, now we have lower. The numbers are lowering. This is something that I'm still trying to figure out why. I know that if we look at deeper into the statistics, if we look at women in higher positions in companies, the statistics will be even lower. If we look at women of color or Latina, or that's also even lower. And Canadians, we're not really doing a good job in putting together statistics in this. We are going to start a research at VOLUTION. We're working with University of Toronto to see if we can figure out some more, like the access to, access to education, access to STEM, access to all of this, to what we do, to figure out why is it that people don't know about STEM, young women don't know about STEM, and also what is it. So in GTA, if you come in GTA and you talk about technology, everybody knows about coding. I'm just going to learn how to code, and I'm going to do this. And I think the reason why a lot of these things are not moving forward, because everybody learns how to code, but they don't know what to do with that after. I know 10, 20 years ago, everybody became a graphic designer, and they couldn't find jobs, right? So the same thing is happening with, they learn how to code. What do I do with that after? What kind of, jobs can I get into? And with the demographic that we work with, to be honest with you, I remember when I started VOLUTION, I had to do outreach, and I said, I would go into schools, or I would go into other nonprofits, other organizations that focus on families and children, and I would talk to the young women and the parents, and I said, STEM is such a good opportunity. I said, what is the opportunity? Tell me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I don't know, because I don't know if I actually come from STEM.
I just know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. And also, I said, some of them would say, well, show me someone that looks like me, or someone that comes from where I come from. Yep. I come in Toronto, we have the Toronto Community Housing. Is anybody from here actually made it, right? It's a different reality that people are experiencing. So it's, a lot of the times I think they don't see themselves into this. But I'm hoping that we will change a little bit more, and I think that if we start, I know it sounds really, I would say even cliche again, but to start with younger, start with them younger, and like what you said earlier, a couple of years back there was a commercial to inspire young women to get into science, and they used makeup. Women in lab, and they were making makeup, and then they got them all dressed up, and and people went around and said, well, you have to stop because that's kind of sexist, or whatever the case may be. The thing is, we could have women that wear high heels, and they could own companies, and they could be in the lab, and they could own a tech company, and they could have staff, and they could do all of that, or they could just dress down. It should be like, be who you are, shows up of who you are, and you can still do that. We need to remove those, I forgot what that's called on top of my head right now, but the stereotypes, and then we'll look at it from different perspectives, from different lenses, and just be okay with someone that is, you don't have to be the typical nerd to be in STEM. You can just be, you can wear makeup. I like wear makeup, and and I'm a social worker, and social work is still kind of the same. Oh, you're supposed to look poor, and I'm like, I don't want to look poor. So I want to inspire people to that's a possibility that you could become, and the same thing in STEM. You have to inspire people. You have to show up as who you want them to be.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's really, I like your comment. We need to see people who look like us in these positions. And I think that, seeing, I'm hoping, maybe us here, right, is just one of those small steps there for younger women. It is possible. Michelle, I've got a question for you.
I have an answer.
Oh, so good, so good. Yeah, see how this works? In your experience, does being a woman in your profession come with extra mental challenges that you have to overcome? For instance, doubting your own ability?
Oh, imposter syndrome. Yes, I'm a big subscriber to imposter syndrome. Have been for many, many years. I was actually speaking with some of my team out in the hall before, and I was saying that I started wearing glasses when I was probably in 2005 because I didn't think I'd look old enough, and I wear them at work every day until 2017. Didn't. Oh, I did. And but it's also showing up in rooms where you don't get the attention and working in airlines and working in a lot of other places. Like there's been a lot of things in my career that have been, questions about getting tea and taking notes and I think it's just over time I've gotten the confidence and I've proven that I work harder than most people. I'm pretty decent at my job. And I've learned this thing in my head that says, if not me, then who? If not me, then who? That's so right. I go into these meetings or I apply for positions or I put something on the table and I think, oh gosh, maybe I shouldn't do that. Somebody else is probably better. And then I think, if not me, then who? Like who around here is actually more capable, more driven, more ambitious, whatever? And then I'm like, no, it's you. Yeah. And so that's the one thing that I have going. And then what was the other part of that question?
Mental challenges.
Oh, God, every day.
Yeah.
So many mental challenges.
Well, even just what you're talking about, right? I don't think necessarily, I don't want to call out men in the room, but like, I don't know if they go through that same process, right? That same idea of feeling like they've got to go through and rethink things over and over again to feel that sense of confidence, to be able to speak up.
I think the men as allies is a massive, massive theme that's super important. And when I got my role, my peer, the CIO, who's a lovely man who happens to be more senior in tenure than I am and been an executive for longer, wrote me a lovely note. And he said, just so you know, I know you can do the job and I will be here to support you. Not that you need it, but I am here to be your advocate and your peer. And that just gave me the confidence to be like, okay, I belong. He trusts me. I know that he advocates for me and that we will be partners no matter how old I am or how old I'm not or anything else. And so I think that little vote of confidence, even though some people might think it is condescending, was a huge vote of support and a pat on my back.
Well, it came from a good place.
Absolutely. And it's knowing that things come from a place of good too, right?
Yeah. No, that's good.
Can I add something to this?
Yeah,
Sorry,
of course
I want to
you
add
can.
something
Of course
else.
you can.
Thank you. So when I started VOLUTION, they talk about the mental stability. So I come from the social work background. I did not work in a tech company. I was just as new as everybody that's starting in my programs right now. So I was trying to figure out how am I going to make this happen. I don't really understand how this works, but my passion for bringing women into the space was bigger than, well, I don't know if I can do this. Now, one day, I researched, I didn't have much money at that time, so I researched events to see where I can meet people, like to meet the right people. And one of the events came up, and there was on a panel, it was a man, and he was an investor. He was investing in tech companies. And he also on the website, because when I go to events, I do my research. Who's the speaker? Who's going to be in the room? Who am I going to meet? Who am I going to shake hands with? It's super important. And especially when you come, when I was back then, I really was low income. I just came from the welfare office, and I started VOLUTION, okay? So from my research, said this investor invests in nonprofits. So I said, I have to be there. My last $40, I paid for the ticket. I went and I sat there. There was everybody talking gibberish because I didn't understand the talk, So I'm like, okay, yes, I'm nodding with everybody else. And then I said, it's time for him. He was talking to people after the panel. So I waited in line almost an hour. And I was getting a bit nervous when I'm getting closer. And then I get close and I'm like, I'm next. I'm like, oh my God, I hope I'm not going to forget what I'm about to say. And then I said, I introduced myself and I said, I've just started an organization, a charitable organization I want to support to bring more women in STEM. He goes, oh, this is amazing. We need this. And I said, well, I've read on our website that you support nonprofits. And I said, I want you to know I am a nonprofit. And we need some funding, which would be very nice to have. And I said the demographic that we work with is women, young women from low income. His thing was like, oh, I'm not investing in poor people. How is that going to make me money?
I was not expecting the story to go in that direction.
It's like, how's that going to make me money? And I was just like, oh my God, what have I done? Of course, I felt offended and I felt hurt and I said, I'm going to go home now. I took my bag and then I literally had tears down my face. I took the streetcar. This was at King and Spadina. I took the streetcar to go to the subway so I can go home. And I was feeling terrible, but still there was that fire in me. It's like, I know I'm supposed to do, this is what I'm doing. It feels like the right thing to do. But why am I getting these messages? And in my mind, by the time I got to the subway station, Spadina subway station, I realized like this is the message that I'm getting to say, I don't want to work with someone like that.
Yeah.
If there's people like him are coming to tell me these messages, those are not the people I want to work with, because at the end of the day, the reason why I created VOLUTION is because it was people like him that put barriers. And this is why young women that cannot afford this are not, they capable and able to go into this field, but they couldn't afford it. So, and just to end into a positive, a lot of young women at VOLUTION, not only what keeps me going and what reminds me of that mission, I feel like this feels amazing, is when young women, they finish in our program and says, I got accepted at U of T or McMaster or, with the program that I wanted, and I got a scholarship. Because I'm like, yes! So it can be done, except that we have the mindset of people, and it holds us back. And that imposter syndrome, at that moment, it could have made me feel like, I have to stop this. I'm not the right person to do this. And it is true. Who's going to want to invest in poor people? But just change it the other way around and see that positive, that it could be done. And yes, I'm a true example of what it can be done.
It's awesome. It's an awesome story. Thank you for sharing that. So the next section is all things are not equal. I think we have another video.
For every dollar a white dude makes, I would get 53%. Because I'm Latina.
Ugh. As a black woman, I'd get 61%.
As a white woman, I'd get 77%. Drinks on me.
As an Asian woman, I would get 85%. Whoop whoop.
You know you're in the bad place when you're celebrating only losing 15% of your paycheck.
On average, each American woman loses over $10,000 to the gender pay gap annually.
How am I supposed to be an independent woman buying the shoes on my feet, the clothes I'm wearing, the rock I'm rocking, when I'm getting paid 80 cents on the dollar compared to men on a good day?
Some people think the wage gap is fabricated or exaggerated because women work less or choose less lucrative careers.
Have you met any women lately?
But women earn less even when their jobs are identical to men.
Take female surgeons, who make just 62% of their male counterpart salaries, losing an average of almost $40,000 a year.
Now, if someone's removing my appendix, they better not cut out just 62% of it.
When it's the whole system that's f***ed up, shouldn't the responsibility of fixing it fall on the people at the top instead of folks who are already being held back?
We've been told it's our responsibility to march into our boss's office and demand that raise. But sadly, a Harvard study found that's only effective 15% of the time.
How many workshops, seminars, and panels have you sat through where you were told that the change starts with you? In our show, Mariana's boss tells her she should get management to enact change. I don't know. Why don't you form an employee grievance committee to make suggestions to management?
Yes, great. Do that.
Who do that?
You do that.
Me do that? I mean, me. Yeah, that could work, but Why is it my character Mariana's responsibility to make sure she's treated equally?
Why do we as individuals have to find a way to make a broken system work?
We live in a world where it's standard for a company to celebrate International Women's Day, applaud us, and tell us how much they value us, just not monetarily.
Good morning. In an effort to show our female colleagues how much we appreciate them and that we hear your concerns, today is the first annual Women's Day at Speculate.
I had nothing to do with this.
We have donuts and balloons and manicure and pedicure stations. So, women, enjoy.
And don't get me wrong, donuts and pedicures at the office sound fun.
But that type of appreciation is superficial.
The best way to show me how much you appreciate me is to pay me the same as my male counterpart.
The men or women, or probably men, at the top of your company are the ones that influence promotions and raises.
A survey of over 10,000 companies found that when women are equally represented or overrepresented at the top, the pay gap at the entire company shrinks.
A tier of upper management that's diverse and not just in gender will create a ripple effect to help close the wage gap.
The wage gap is not just a gender issue. It's also a race issue. In 2015, black men earned 73% of what white men earned. This number hasn't changed since 1980.
Among women, the disparity is striking. The 2018 median weekly income was $937 for Asian women,
$817 for white women,
$654 for black women,
And $617 for Hispanic women.
The wage gap is a curse that follows women and people of color from job to job because your salary is often based on what you made at your previous job.
So if you're a manager, break that cycle. Pay your new hire what they're worth, not what you can get away with.
Yes, that's more money out of pocket up front. But when employees are paid fairly, they're more likely to put in extra effort and actually commit to staying at the company.
Imagine that.
And for those of us who aren't in charge of hiring or giving raises yet, we'll get there one day. And meanwhile, we can remind colleagues and friends that the pay gap is real and spread the word that salaries based on our actual value should be standard.
In some places, they already are. Asking about salary history is illegal in 15 states, a perfect example of tackling the problem at the highest level. Have you asked for a raise?
We need to talk.
Yeah.
It's actually a bit of an uncomfortable topic, right? And I think as women, no one wants to talk about salaries, and you don't want to go in and demand or ask, or because you feel like maybe you don't deserve it. I can remember when I first started out my first IT career job, I sat around a room with a group of men who had nowhere near the education I had. I tripled them in education at the very least, and I was the least paid person in that room. Two of us worked for the same organization, and I didn't get pissed off about it. I just thought that I must not be as smart. I must not have big of a job. So we asked all of you what you thought. Do you think you personally have experienced a wage gap in the IT industry? Now, I know some of you answered this wrong, but I'm not going to point out who that was. But 44% of you said yes, right? So of the women, we really pulled the women. 44% of you said yes, you've experienced this. It's not a one-off. So I'm going to start, Tanya. What do you think can be done by companies to address this problem in the workplace better?
So yes, I'm really glad I got the uncomfortable topic question. I think there's a lot of things you can do at an organizational level, and I'm going to speak from the McMaster perspective. But I think it applies to other organizations and companies. I think one is looking for a strong DEI mandate or program. So companies that truly believe and live those types of values will have those kinds of programs and the initiatives to find parity in different ways. Might not be equal pay just yet, unfortunately, but I think that that's a start. The next, and I think the video touched on this, is transparency. So McMaster being a public sector organization, after a certain amount, you end up on the sunshine list. And so everybody can see it. And not everybody likes that, but it's showing everybody what the discrepancies are. And you can't really hide behind it. And so those questions can be asked. And then I think the video also touched on building awareness around it. So the initiatives that promote women in tech or women in STEM. So we have a McMaster Women in Tech initiative where we run similar events to this. We invite leaders from across the organization and across our community outside of McMaster to come along. We have to address the uncomfortable topics. And we have to figure out solutions to get around some of the barriers. I don't think it is as simple as being able to go in and demand a salary. I mean, depending on what sector you're in or what organization, even the hiring managers don't always have that leeway. But if there is a commitment through your DEI values and your leadership to at least consider that parity, then that's a start. I do just also want to add that there are things that we can do at an individual level and as leaders. And that's something that I noticed as a trend. I work with a lot of new graduates, so they come in for short-term contracts, like a year, and interns. And I always noticed that when they were cycling out, as they often do, they ask for advice on their next opportunities, and the males would always ask, how can I negotiate better salary?
Really?
Yes. And I would answer that because fair question. You know, when you're starting out, it's uncomfortable to talk about money regardless of what gender you are. The females do not ask that question. So when I've made a commitment when they're cycling off and we're having the discussions about where are you going next, how do you feel about it, are you talking about money? And it takes them aback. And I'm like, well, no, I don't really, I don't really know how to address that. Ask. Ask and be strong and confident in it. Because if you don't ask, the answer is no.
That's right.
Can I
Yeah, sure.
pile on to this? I have a complete commitment to equity. I don't care what you made before, unless it's higher than what I'm going to offer you. When people, because that's a thing too, right? Like we need to make it work. I offer people what the band can pay, where they fit in, experience, everything else. We do reviews multiple times a year around all of our different team members. I have our PNC, our people and culture, HR compensation people come to me and say, I think this person is low in band, we need to bump these. There were many, many women that we bumped last year. So it is absolutely prevalent and in all the conversations I have, so that I never need to have somebody say, I wonder where I'm paid in band, and I wonder how I'm compensated compared to my male peers. Like I want that to be never in somebody's mind, and never to have to come and ask for that, and to know that I see you, I recognize you, I know what you're making, and that I will advocate for our team members where necessary too. And I think it's even more important in the tech space when the competition is out there and we know that they're coming for us and coming for our team, to make them feel included, recognized, rewarded, compensated.
Fairly compensated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Can I add to this as well?
Yeah.
Sorry, I have a lot to say.
We like that.
Thank you. I see a lot of job postings, and they never post how much they actually pay. I think it starts with that, like, this is the job that I have available, and this is the salary that comes with it. It could be a range. So it should not be, this should not be, well, how much did you get paid your last job, and I'm going to pay you this much. That's not fair, because people already come with experience, so that's actually not fair. And also another thing that I like to comment, what I noticed, I don't know if it's a North American thing, but we don't talk about how much I get paid, how much you get paid, as just like a societal level. Like, why are we ashamed about how much we get paid? Because the more we talk about it, it becomes a well-known fact. So now I know how much you get paid, so therefore, hey, if I'm going to go and I'm going to ask, it's like, I know I can get at least as much as she is. But we just keep that a secret.
I think there are websites that share.
Yeah.
Glassdoor? What's the
Glassdoor
one?
will showcase salaries.
All of my team are like, oh yeah, it's Glassdoor.
But it is true. We don't
We're ashamed to talk about it for whatever
our salary.
reason. But when the job postings are at VOLUTION, where we hire it, this is how much you get paid an hour. Man or woman, doesn't matter. You know, this is a job for students. We hire students in the summer to train, to code. This is how much we hire both men and women, no problem. You come with that experience, we welcome you. We hired somebody in the past. This is how much we offer you. If this is not for you and you feel like if we can pay you then why should you waste your time and apply? I find that to be very ridiculous because it's that taboo. Like for me it was very weird coming from Romania and coming to here, and I'm like, I want to get this job and I want to apply for it, but not telling me how much it is. So I'm going through this process, or like a couple of weeks, and I finally get an interview and I'm going there and I'm like, you cannot ask how much compensation in the first interview. And I'm like, so when do I ask? And it's just so confusing. So why don't we just make that normal or part of the interview process, or just the first thing posted on the job posting? This is the pay range. Right?
It's a good suggestion, because IT jobs don't post.
A lot of jobs don't post, so it needs to start to be normal now that they should be mandated. This is the pay range.
Good suggestion. Okay, so another video.
One of the coolest feelings in the world is figuring out how to solve a complicated problem at work. It feels great to be the person with the solution.
But you know what doesn't feel so great? When someone else takes the credit for your idea.
What do we do about the himitator?
The guy who says what you just said and everyone thinks it was his idea?
Yep, we've all seen a himitator at work. In Good Trouble, we see himitators in action at Speculate, the tech company where Raj and my character Mariana work.
Now first, a female coworker makes a suggestion, a good one.
We need to improve our connections model and dig into image audio recognition and rank possible connections based on quality
our
content.
connections model review can wait until the next scrum.
But it gets overlooked.
Then, he pounces. The himitator restates what his female colleague just said, usually louder and more assertively, without giving her due credit.
I was thinking we should look into our image audio to improve recognition and maybe rank our connections based on content quality.
And bam! Their boss remembers him as the man with the plan.
It's a good idea, Sam.
Unfortunately, research shows that the epidemic of men interrupting women is pervasive.
One study found that men are 33% more likely to interrupt women than men. It's also showed that on average, men interrupt women twice in the course of a 3-minute conversation.
That being said, it's important to know that most imitators aren't consciously ripping women off. Gentlemen, the next time you get the impulse to interrupt a female colleague, take a moment to ask yourself why. And second, listen when your female colleagues are speaking, as closely as you would listen to your male colleagues. You're far less likely to subconsciously rip somebody off if you're consciously paying attention to them.
I also want to take a second to thank the guys who already do this. There are plenty of you out there who do right by us. And by calling the shit out when you see it happening, you can help bring your boys up to your level. And ladies, know that you're not alone. One of your most valuable resources is each other. Just look at the amplification tactic used by the women of the Obama administration. When a female staffer made a good point during a meeting, other women would echo it while thanking the staffer by name for her idea, minimizing the chance that the men in the room could take credit for it. The women of Good Trouble use this tactic too.
What about when you've done all that and you're still not getting credit for your idea? Amplification.
Oh,
Yes.
yes, amplification, yeah. Yeah, when we're in meetings together, we need to speak up and give each other credit.
And remember, amplifying is a gender-neutral activity. So guys, help lift up your female coworkers by making sure that they're actually heard in the first place.
It's a fun video. If you didn't know that was a issue that happens, now you do, because it happens all the time, right? Sabiha, have you ever experienced a himitator at work?
Many times, many times. It has happened so many times that you just get used to it, right? But I feel these kind of situations, they make you stronger. Why? Because if I have any idea that I wish to propose, I always do my homework. I prepare. Maybe it could be in the form of a presentation or something. So that, I do not allow these people to take, even if they are reiterating, I have my homework done so that I can present those figures. So that's what I do. And of course, especially when I'm joining a new company, lay of the land. Right? Female counterparts are always supportive, but many times you won't get so many females working in the industry, right? What do? Look for your male counterparts who will be in a position to support you, advocate you, right? Your bosses. They also have a vested interest in you, right? you make them look successful. How do you do that? So that's what I do. See people who are supportive, and when I have ideas, I always talk to them before presenting, so that I know that they will support me.
It's good. It's a great idea, Sabiha. Give you credit for that.
Yes.
Great idea, Sabiha.
Amplification. Amplification. Michelle, what advice would you give to men in the workplace who want to advocate and support
Do it.
women? Just do it.
Do it. And thank you for being here today. I think this is really to that point around, men on stage. So I presented at a Women in IT Summit last week, and one of the panelists was a man, right? And it's not an us versus them,
No, it's
right?
not.
It's a collective, and we should all support each other regardless, right? And so I think we are stronger together. And so I think that's, we've got in the Women at Teachers, ERG, we have a Men as Allies stream. We've started all this work around women's health. We also have a men's health. There was a men's mental health session yesterday morning, right? Like it is collective. We all need to get there together. We're all trying to get to the finish line together. So yeah, please do. Just do it.
Just do it.
And also, congratulate them and thank them when they do too, right? Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for having somebody's back. But I think that's also a role modeling thing that I try to do is when we're in a big meeting room and there are seats off to the side and women are sitting there, and I will say, you've been invited to this room, take a seat at the table, right? Like I am actively trying to make people seen.
We need more people like you.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's also unfortunately from experience, right? And I think it is my job. This is my legacy. It's not work product. It's not anything else. It's making all these people the best they can be and hiring good people and getting out of their way. Don't second guess people. Don't, let them run. Let them fly. So.
And they're here.
They're here. And I love them all, and I just want to hug them because they're, some of my, I'm huge fans.
That's good. I was watching a TV show, I won't say which one, and I'm watching with my daughter, and I actually had to pause it and write down what this person was saying because it's a terrible show. But
It's okay, we watch them too.
It talked about how women often don't want to ask for help. They don't want to say they're struggling. They don't want to say they need something. And so I have a piece of advice, just help them. Whether it's your wife, whether it's your child, whether it's your mother, your nieces, it doesn't matter, your aunts. Just help. Like, don't wait for them to ask, because sometimes we don't. We just think that we need to do it all ourselves, and we need to do it better, faster, stronger. So that's my piece of advice. So we had 2 audience questions. So let's see who wants to answer this. How can we make access to mentoring, coaching, networking easier for women? Maybe I'll start. I think that you got this sort of wrapped up. Doina?
Well, I can only speak from the audience, the girls and the young women that we have in the program. Like, join an organization like VOLUTION. I mean, start them young. And it doesn't matter whether you're a man or woman, you can always inspire someone to do what you do, or at least give them the opportunity to see that that's possible for them, and they can make the choice after. It really, I think, if I can say this again, there's a million ways to do one thing, and if you really want to do something, you find a way to do it. So if you want to mentor, you can mentor young women, you can mentor someone at your company as well, because there's a lot of not new hires, but just new grads, thank you so much, like new grads that just come and they don't know, they can't figure it out, so they need to have that support. And when you see someone that stands above and beyond, just reach out to them. They might, like you said, they might not ask for help, but you go reach out and says, I see something in you, let me see how I can support you. And one more other thing that we don't do enough when we get into the professions, other than just turn around and mentor, sponsor. You know that there's someone that is a great candidate for that job, They don't need to be in the room. You get them hired, you in the room. I've had a lot of the volunteers that came at VOLUTION, and some people just stood out. And I get a lot of companies from our partners, they give jobs. We have a job, do you know someone? I say, I know just the person. And I've made a connection, I said, you have to hire them. I say, you have an interview tomorrow. I'm like, what? And I know that they're looking for work. I don't need to go and say, are you looking for work, do you think? And even if they're not, this is an opportunity for you to might be something that could be better for you. So we need to speak more for people that we can vouch for. We mentor them, and then we sponsor them. We don't just mentor and leave it a mentoring and let them figure it out. We have to sponsor them too.
That's great. Thank you for that answer. Here's another question, because I see it's late, and I didn't get to drink a drink of wine before the event, so I feel like I want to wrap this up.
I thought that was the question. I know it's late.
See?
I was like, wow, good one.
How to overcome imposter syndrome. Any tips? I feel like an imposter right here at this event, so I'm not sure. Right?
Okay, to be honest with you, I don't think we'll ever escape imposter syndrome. When we say we don't have imposter syndrome, is we're not trying something new. So we're always going to try something new. The thing is, feel the fear and do it anyways. Try it and see what happens. And we need to stay away from this narrative. I'm going to fail, or what they're going to think. How about we just ask, what am I going to learn from this? Just ask different questions. Like, what am I going to learn from this? If I'm going to go and talk to this person about the job, and I'm not going to get it, what am I learning from this? It's probably I need more qualifications, or I need to know someone in the company that can hook me up, or whatever the case may be. Like, I'm learning something from that. But I really don't think that we'll ever get rid of imposter syndrome, because
changing the narrative.
Changing the narrative,
yeah.
I think the other thing that I've done over time is to make myself be more risk tolerant. I have built networks. I have this thing in my head where I'm like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I know I can find another job. Might not be as great as the one I have, but it's, you know what, I can now go out and take those risks. I can step forward in rooms and say things and have that creative abrasion that I think we need at work. And I'm not scared of it anymore. But I also work for an organization, I believe, where I have that psychological safety, where it is not only encouraged but demanded of someone. But I also have the mentor. I have the official mentor, that's our chief people officer. I have sponsorship that I know runs in different directions. But also, I do mentor other people, and I sponsor. There's actually somebody in this room today that I went to somebody recently, and I said, I think for that job, you should think of this person. And I don't even know if they know it, but there's...
Now they do. They're like,
well, no, because now they're wondering, who is it? Who is it? I know. But yeah, it's important. And it's fun. It's so fun to see people thrive and drive and achieve and, because they're all smarter than me. It's just, you just got to stand people up. So, and also, because then when you say, you are good enough, you can do this, I believe in you, then maybe some of their imposter syndrome will dissipate, and they'll prove something to themselves that they'll use as a proof point the next time that they go into a room like that.
And I loved your comment earlier, if not me, then who? And so I do a lot of self-talk. Sometimes it's not good, but a lot of it's really good. And I do tell myself that I can do this.
Oh my gosh, also the Superman pose? Do you know that one where you stand with...
Yes.
I stood in the bathroom at the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan in December, about 3 years ago, and there's stupid Superman pose in the bathroom. Looking up at the ceiling with my legs spread and my arms spread, and years later I learned that door doesn't lock properly, and there's actually been some mistakes, but can you imagine somebody walking in on you? You're all fierce in front of the mirror. But yeah, I do that. I stupidly stand there in a Superman pose to try to give myself the confidence that I need.
I'll tell you what to do. I was reading Gayleen.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Gayleen, I read a quote by her to talk about being bold and fearless, and I think that's the other piece to sort of, combat this imposter syndrome. Just be bold, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, we did a whole session on imposter syndrome, and I mean, it's really hard to follow the Superman pose, just to let you know. But I think what we can do individually is try to control the narrative in our head too. Like there's an article out there, I think it's by Harvard Business Review, that imposter syndrome is a myth, which it's not. So many people feel it, but it is actually just this construct that's come from all the different pressures that women face, the inequity in pay and all sorts of things. And so it's just an additional anxiety that we have to deal with. So if we change the narrative to say, and I come back to my original point, what do I have? Start there. What do I have to bring to the table, as opposed to what don't I have? Why don't I belong? Then I think then we can try to change the narrative in our own heads, and then also have that coupled with the mentors, with the networks, with the support, and people talking about it too, and knowing that there is space for us to belong.
That's good. With the Superman pose too.
With the Superman pose.
I'm going to try that.
That stuff works. I tried it too.
It's awesome. Yeah. That's it. So I want to thank each of you for being here, being open, being honest, sharing your thoughts, your feelings. I really appreciate that. I think everyone does as well. I want to thank Shannon and Kwan for putting this on. And Eclipsys as well for sponsoring the event. So thank you.
Yes, I want to add the last word, sorry. But I want to say, given that I work with the next generation, really, conversations like this will never get old. We need to have this. So thank you for doing this, because now I can take this and just bring it back to the young women. Says there are people out there that are actually looking forward to be working with you in the future. So yes, so thank you for doing this. Thank you.